Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Losing the Plot. I'm Leo Robertson. I find artists of all varieties I find interesting. They're usually writers, they don't have to be. And we talk about their work, we talk about life, we talk about anything and everything. We lose the plot together, hence the title of the show. As always, we start with the latest of what's going on over at Aphotic Realm. Issue number 7 is out now. It's gruesome. Who doesn't love over-the-top 80s horror films? A punk band fights off a horde of possessed fans at a local concert. A makeout session at the cemetery takes a turn for the worst. Slashers, critters, demons, gore, hairspray. The 80s horror B-movie aesthetic is what issue 7 Gruesome is all about, so do check that out. The Realm also has its own merch store right on the Aphotic Realm site itself. You can buy t-shirts, beanies, caps and tank tops. And if you check out the new Aphotic Realm Instagram, you can see yours truly sporting an Aphotic Realm t-shirt in the dark grey heather colour. I think it's great. And there's loads of cool other merch. I'm sure I will get other stuff too. And I hope you will as well. Please do check out the merch in the store. Finally, I hope you will consider supporting Aphotic Realm on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get early access to podcast episodes such as this one. You can also get digital downloads of all Aphotic books as well. So do check that out. Please consider supporting Aphotic Realm on Patreon also.
I wrote this thing. I hope you like it. Let's talk about it, yeah. Let's lose track. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Losing the Plot Podcast. Talking to Leo.
Our guest this episode is Dean Drinkel. He is a filmmaker, playwright, and now editor of Demain Publishing. It's Demain Publishing, not Demain Publishing, like I said to him, because it's French, and it's publishing the best horror writers of tomorrow today. I had a great chat with him, and I hope you enjoy it. Here it is. So, how are you doing? How's your week been?
Really busy. I think I said to you over email that at the moment I'm writing 3 big scripts.
Ooh.
So yeah, 3 features film scripts, and as well then sorting out all the books and everything that we've been publishing this week as well. So I've actually had 2 hours off today. I was listening to the football, and I think that's really all I've had all week. So I'm shattered.
Is that a typical week for you?
It is at the moment because if people come to me and say, look, Dean, can you write this? Can you do that? I try not to say no. So it just happens at the moment that I've really hit a bit of a bottleneck. It's probably my own fault. And it's all good because the 3 scripts are very different. But the workload is, I'm doing 13 hours a day, 7 days a week at the moment. And I'm just not really getting any time for myself. But, it's cool. This is the life I wanted, so I can't be moaning too much.
Yeah, but it's such a typical... I was listening to another podcast earlier today, and it's the same thing as like, if I don't accept all the work, then it will go away and people won't, want me to do it or something. It just seems like when the career is the one you've chosen, it's like... I don't know if that's how it is for you, but I imagine it would... Tell me.
No, you're dead right. I think that the thing is, you've always got to be. You've always got. Now, this is going to sound terrible if you ever watch sort of things like the X Factor and all that. But they always tell the contestants that they've got to be fresh. They've got to be, always in people's minds. And I think that's the problem because you can write a script and then it might do well. But if you only concentrate on that one script, people might then come to you and say, well, look. We like that script, but it's not really for us because that was a historical script. We want a horror script. Have you got a horror script? You go, no, I haven't. That was the script that we wrote, and we've been concentrating on that. And they say, okay, sorry, we need to go to somebody else. So this is what you've got to keep doing. You've got to keep yourself fresh. You've got to keep yourself current, so that when people come to you and they say, right, Dean, we love your work. We read this script, but it's not really for us. Have you got something else? You can then sort of, yeah, I've got this one, or I've got that. You've got to keep, you've got to have a big bank of script. You've got to, like with stories as well. I mean, that's happened in the past. You've spoken to publishers and they said, we really like what you do, but not quite this story. Have you got something else? And the answer has to be yes. I'll be very careful I'm going to say this. In the film world, that the problem you have is that you're not always paid at the point when you're doing the work. So you can be doing, I mean, this has happened to me the last couple of years where, producers have contacted me and say, Dean, look, we want to work with you. Can you write us something? I go, yeah, cool. When do you need it? They give us a day. And I say, when's the money? Can you give me some money up front? A couple of them have said, we can give you something. And the others have said, look, we're new producers. We can give you this extra credit once we actually get to production. But at the moment, there isn't any money. So you then have to decide whether you can risk it or you just have to decline it. Earlier, let's go back to December last year. I wanted to write a film about a French poet, and I contacted this organisation because they might have had some information that they could give me, some papers, some original stuff to research. And they actually then said to me, well, Dean, look, can you come and see us? Because we're looking at developing a TV project. So, perhaps you want to get involved in that. So I met the guy, had a really good meeting, and he explained to me, look, he'd been trying to get this project going for a couple of years, but didn't have a script. He's got this an outline for the sort of 5 years worth of stories, but he just didn't have the right person to write the script. So he said to me, would you fancy doing it? So straight away I was yes. But then it was, well, when's the money? So we talked about that, and I decided that, okay, there wouldn't be any money on the table at this moment, but this could be something really exciting. So I spent a little time, wrote the script. He loved it. The problem is it's almost a year later, and it's now only starting to kick in with some of the meetings and whatnot. And that's the nature. That's not, his fault, my fault. That's just the nature of it sometimes. The problem is that there's a pilot script, an hour script that is in theory worth a lot of money. And I haven't been paid for it yet.
Yeah. Do you think that's only possible because people are so passionate about your profession?
I think that, I spend a lot of time in France and certainly at the Cannes Film Festival. And, I can answer this question, I suppose, from 2 points of view. Is the fact that you get lots of people who are just liars, okay, and they will trade on sort of naivety or, passion is a good word. So they'll, you might go to a party or whatever, they come up to you and they say, we've heard about you. Could you write us a script? And you go, yeah, and they promise you the world. So you get so overwhelmed by that. It's only then after you do the work that you turn out, it turns out, that maybe they were just liars. And they traded on your passion. On the flip side, maybe they're not all liars, but the fact that they've maybe said too much, in the fact that they've convinced themselves that they can get some money, and maybe they have. This has happened to me loads of times, where you get to a point where you think that the feature film is going to get made, and the money just falls apart right at the end. And in the film industry, I mean, I'm a member of the Writers Guild, and I went to the AGM last year. I couldn't do this year's one, but last year's one. And they have this this mantra now that, you don't work for no money, if that makes sense. So, you should always be paid because there are people who just keep taking advantage. And it's tough for writers. It definitely is tough. It definitely is, because you have to make a decision. Do you just sort of sit at home and not write because people aren't giving you the money? Or do you actually just take a punt and go, you know what, okay, I can do this. It won't take me that long to write it. So let's try and get it done. Because otherwise, it's a catch-22 situation all the time, especially for new writers, because no one's going to come to you if you haven't written anything. and you just, it just goes round and round. I mean, I remember when, tell me to stop if I'm rambling, but when my first book came out just after I left university, and I actually physically sat by the door because I thought someone was going to come knocking and give me loads of money, like Hollywood or big publisher or whatever. And I was with friends who were ex-students, and they kept going to work or whatever and saying, Dean, what are you doing sitting by this door? I said, well, it's going to knock. Someone is going to knock on this door. Anyway, it didn't happen. So I ended up cleaning aeroplanes at Heathrow Airport.
In some respect, what you're talking about has always been part of the industries that you're in. But in another respect, when you think about, like, I don't know, the stereotypical writer or creative or artist is like, I don't know, like they work sporadically and sometimes they drink too much and blah, blah, blah. Like, is that just doesn't seem like a possibility anymore?
No, I don't think it is because, a little bit of my background. I moved to, so I was living in London and I was always going to the Cannes Film Festival. And in 2015, I loved doing karaoke. And the girl that was doing the karaoke, she said, Dean, can you come and meet this young French guy? Because he's a writer, but he doesn't really know how to progress. He's only in his early 20s. And he doesn't know how to progress. So I said, cool. Within 5 minutes of talking to him, I decided that I was going to sort of change my life and move to Cannes and write a script with him. So during the time that we did that, social life was very important. Certainly, south of France, we were, as well as writing, we were always drinking or doing this, that, and the other. It was a good time. After that, I said to him, right, we've done this script. It won some awards at Monaco Film Fest. It's all good. Let's get on. And he was like, oh, Dean, I don't know if I can go through all that again. Because it took us like 9 months to write it. And it was 9 months of hard work, but also, I suppose, terrible expression I'm going to use now, but sort of 9 months of hard partying too. Right. And he was like, Dean, I don't think we can do that. So we haven't written another script together. We've done some other little minor stuff. But after that, I was like, well, people are contacting me saying, Dean, we really, really love this. We want to work with you. Can you do more stuff? And I was like, yeah, okay. So I've done, some other scripts on my own, some other projects on my own. And I've noticed that as the last 2 years, definitely last 2 years have gone by, I'm not going out anymore. I'm not drinking anymore. It's constant work. There was a book launch for a book of mine 3 weeks ago in London, and I went to that, and I was sitting there realizing that was the first drink and the first time I'd been out in something like 3 to 4 months. I mean, that's just mental.
Yeah,
I've appreciated that. You need to put the effort in, and then the rewards will come. And I'm not saying I didn't put the effort in before, but as I said at the beginning of this, when people are coming to you saying, Dean, we need a script, can you do it within the next month? You've got 2 months, can you do it? As much as I'd like to go to the football, as much as I'd like to go out drinking or to the cinema or whatever, if I do that, then that's taken me away from the work. And I've decided that at the moment, I'm just going to sacrifice everything so that I can get these scripts done and get them out there, because it's all going to happen and it's all positive stuff. Where it doesn't work sometimes is that, and this is what I say to the family, because when I'm in England, I'm staying with my mother and brothers and stuff, is that to be creative, you need stuff that goes in your brain for it then to come out. And if you're just sitting in front of a computer 24 hours a day, there's not much that's going in.
Yeah.
And that's when sometimes there's a problem.
So when you're writing things, at least when I'm writing things, I can usually tell why I'm writing them. What event happened that started me thinking about such and such. So you're saying that like when you sit to write things, you're like, oh yeah, but I'm kind of writing about somebody I met like several years ago instead of something that's more current. Is that how it feels?
Yeah, I mean, writing's always been strange thing for me, because when I went to university, people that I know anyway, always think that I did creative stuff at uni, but it wasn't. It was history. And one day we were playing football and I went into the showers because we were drinking. We were going to go out that night drinking, go into the showers and obviously start showering. And I had my eyes closed. The soap was in my eyes. I had them closed, trying to get there. And all these words started appearing in as if they were in front of me. So, and it was like my head was killing me and these words just kept appearing. And I rushed back to, because we're in halls of residence, I rushed back to my room and started typing out this story, which was then published and blah, blah, blah. Now, the thing about that, what I'm saying here is had I wanted to be a writer beforehand, I don't know. Maybe there was some stuff in, maybe I was thinking about it. I don't know. But that was like it opened a door. And as soon as that first one came out, then it was like the next day I was doing another one. So I was being inspired all the time, and everyone used to say this to me at uni. We'd be out. I'd always have my notepad on me, and I'd just see something. Weird. This is going to sound really weird, right? Whether I'm not 100%, I don't know. But I used to maybe look at bricks in a wall, and there'd be something about those bricks as if like the wall opened up, and then these images came out to me. So that was what my writing was like for a long time. With the films, what I've been able to do is if someone's come to me and said, "Oh, Dean, we need a film about." So I'm doing a horror project at the moment. We signed a deal in Cannes, and it's going to be it's a werewolf film that I'm writing and going to be directing. And the concept was the producer. There's a purpose-built set in the Ukraine, which is being used for another film. And the producer came to me and said, "Dean, can you use this set? I've got an idea. Do you think you could write that for me? And we can make it." And I was like, "Okay, you're not going to say no to that." So I said, "Yeah, definitely." You go away from it and you're thinking, "Oh, okay, werewolf thing isn't something really that's me. How can I inspire myself? How can I get inspired to write something which is very bespoke?" So what I did in that instance is there's some terrorists that are on it, okay, as well. So I was like, well, we don't really want to have, the usual type of terrorist, let's put it that way. So I started like playing with ideas about these terrorists, came up with quite a good idea, I thought, and that then gave me the inspiration to write the film. So what was good there is it wasn't something that I kicked off. Someone came to me, but I was able to use my own talent, if you like, with a little t, my own skills, and then my own inspiration to make this project mine.
I would like to know, like I should have started with this, but like in a more linear fashion, like what your career has looked like, because so you started writing stories and then you worked in plays and then into film, something like that?
Yeah, okay. So as I said, I was lucky that, so when I was at uni, I wrote this first story and sent it to the college magazine. They loved it, and I had been, I think, 20 or 30 published while I was at uni. And then a small publisher came to me and said, "Oh, Dean, we've heard about this. Can we put a book together?" Which is what I did. Waited for Hollywood to come knocking. That didn't happen, and I ended up cleaning these aeroplanes. And so when I was doing that, people were saying to me, "Well, Dean, you've just been at university. Do you really want to be cleaning aeroplanes for the rest of your life?" And I was like, no. You know what? I fancy maybe doing some writing properly now, doing this, that, and the other. And they said, "Well, books, stories, or would you like to do films?" And I was like, you know what? I think I've always wanted to do a film. And I was very much, I've always been very much inspired by Clive Barker and Hellraiser. There's a lot of people in my generation are. And I always saw myself as, yes, I'm going to write Hellraiser 6 or 7 or whatever it was at that time. So, sit at home, bang out the script, nothing really happened. And I think this was a turning point. I'll use that word. It was a turning point because even though I was creating stuff, there was nowhere for it to go. I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have a vast network of people that were in the industry, either sort of in the books or in the films. But then I I saw that there was a thing called the St. Peter Ustinov Award, which was part of the International Emmys.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for scripts from new writers. So I wrote something specific for that and came second place, runner-up for that. And by doing that, that then led me to writing a couple of other stories, short stories, which appeared in sort of some e-zines or some, low, what do you call it, sort of black and white fanzine type things. Not fanzines, but magazines, whatever.
Yep.
And then through that, I got contacted by a theatre, which was the Cockpit Theatre in London. And they said, Dean, we've seen some of your writing. Have you ever thought about doing something in a theatre? And I was like, well, I'll be honest with you. I have thought about theatre, but I don't like theatre people. I thought it was too many lovies and all that stuff, right? Which was wrong, but that's how I felt at the time. And they said, well, no, come down. We do these things called Theatre in the Pound, which is all the audience, it's new writing, audience come in, pay £1. And I was like, okay, well, I went and saw a night and I thought, okay, this isn't bad. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what? I've got a story. Why don't I get somebody to read my story? Just as a monologue type thing. And that went down really, really well. As a French actress that I got to do that. That went really well. And the theatre then said to me, well, Dean, how about, can you do something else? So over let's say the next year, maybe it was slightly less, but I was doing, I had a monologue, some a two-hander, a three-hander, and then I started writing plays. And I really, really got into what we were doing because it was all very... lots of dark comedy. There was obviously big horror influence. I mean, one of the ones that we were quite successful with was this family called the Crumps, who were like serial killers and based on Fred and Rose West to some extent. And they went really, really, really well. And I also then, whilst all that was going on, managed to direct one of Clive's plays, Frankenstein in Love, a small theatre, in London as well. So Barons Court Theatre. So that was, the theatre was something that I didn't like, but really did like it. But it got to the point where we were, so we'd rehearse because lots of the actors maybe had day jobs as well. Because, there's lots of sort of low budget fringy stuff. But so you would rehearse maybe 3 nights a week. Then on the 4th night, I'd be writing the next play. And all during that time, we'd be drinking, socializing. And it got to the point where you didn't know whether you were rehearsing to socialize or socialize to rehearse. Everything just became so, it was a crazy, crazy time. And it got to the point we actually had 2 plays on at the same time at the Pleasance Theatre. One about these Crumps and another one about these American rednecks called the Catskills. And I had always big casts, and you think that I'd written these, directed them, and produced, and we were having a drink in the theatre bar, and I just looked around and I thought, what an amazing time I've had, but I can't do this anymore. It was just too much. So we stopped doing. So that was it. That was it with the theatre. At the same time, at the same time then, when the theatre stuff was coming to an end, I went and did some short films, which is, something that was always in me. But again, I didn't really have a network of people. But of course, we're starting to hit digital, so cameras were readily available. And as soon as you start saying, I don't know about your own creative life, but as soon as you start telling people, oh, you want to make a film, suddenly everyone's knocking at the door. Oh, can we help? Can we help? And we did really well with some short films. They screened down in Cannes. There was a little sidebar part of the festival. It's a little bit different now, but when it first started, it was really avant-garde and cool, and you could meet some amazing people down there. And we did 3 or 4 short films that screened there. So yeah, God, that's exhausting.
Well, that was decades summarized in a minute or so. So of course it was exhausting, and it was well done. It was, followed it. It had a hook. But yeah, no, that's incredible. I had a question for you that's relevant to what you just said. Does celebrity do anything for you? Have you met any cool people and then you go, oh my God?
Lee, I tell you what, right? I've been lucky, okay, that I have met some incredible people. Many of them have been celebrities. And I mean, I saw something yesterday that Clint Eastwood was dead. Anyway, it turned out it was a hoax or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I did meet Clint Eastwood, and when you come across those sort of older Hollywood people, you know you're in the presence of greatness. I know they're human beings, obviously, but recently, I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to say this. Recently, I worked on a movie, and in the Highlands, not far from Inverness. And some people were asking me about sort of celeb stories. So I started dropping one or two sort of names, and I was doing it because from an honest point of view, I'm not a name dropper, but when you meet these people, and you want to, the majority of them have been very positive. Probably all of them, I think, have been really positive. So you then want to start telling other people. So on the film set, people were asking me these stories, and I started telling, and then I got a tap on the shoulder going, Dean, can you please stop? Can you not stop? And I was like, no, I can't, because now I've been talking about Clint Eastwood, I can talk about Jack Nicholson, I can talk about Faye Dunaway, I can talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, I can talk about all these people. And even when I was saying it, I was like, oh my God, if anyone could hear this, they must think, what is this guy on about? But they're all true, and I've had some great time. Also, I mean, a lot of my friends are French actors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're very, I don't know if you've ever met any French actors, but they're a very different breed to, say, British actors, and certainly to American actors. The French, the way that they look at their film industry, their writers, their creative people is very different. And if you saw a French actor in the street, I don't know, let's just say you saw Gérard Depardieu in the street in France, and you went and spoke to him, 9 times out of 10, he would stand there and talk and have a proper engaging conversation with you. Mm-hmm. You do that to maybe Hollywood actors, and they want to put a barrier up. Let's say, for my own experience, I've had some amazing times with Hollywood actors and actresses. I mean, even once I met Jeff Goldblum and pitched him an idea as we were getting in the lift. And he was like, Dean, this is really interesting. Anyway, we spent this whole time in this lift just chatting about this thing. And I think I was rambling and probably making most of it up as I was going along. But he seemed to enjoy it. And then we got out at the top floor, and he said, oh, Dean, here's my agent's details, give her a call. And I was like, okay, cool. He said, I've got to go now. So I said, all right. And the lift door closed, and then the lift obviously didn't move anywhere. And I was like, well, where am I? What? I knew what building I was in, but I had no idea where I was or what I'd just been talking about. And I was like all shaking. But it's been fun. I've often said to myself, there's lots of things I haven't achieved, but if I was to shuffle off this mortal coil right now, I would have a smile on my face thinking about some of the situations and, funny times that I've got myself into.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, I don't know. Nobody's really, oh God, I always go very esoteric with everything, so you have to forgive me. But I mean, nobody ever really knows what the hell is going on. We're all just doing what looks good next. And, as long as you're out there and still trying stuff and thankful for how it's going, I think that's great. I think that's the way to be.
I think you're right. And I think what's something that's always confused me is that, just because, say, someone's an actor or someone's a famous person, is that suddenly they've got this, that they know the secret, that there's been some, the secrets of life have been imparted to them. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I know that, I've been drinking, well, I better not say it, but, I've been drinking with certain people and realised that, they are as human as we are. Mm. Sometimes, and there's a young British actor who's now won an Oscar and blah, blah, blah. And I remember one night in London going to a private members club for film people and whatnot, and with another actor who was in one of my plays, and we were sitting there, and suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder, and this actor turned around and said, "Oh, hello, are you Dean?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's going, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about this. You know, I heard some people talking about your play," and I was like, "Yeah." I was just so shocked that this guy, who then a couple of years later won an Oscar, is actually sort of knowing who I am, and is then knowing about my work, and it. Now, this is going to sound really strange, but it was almost like he was scared to talk to me.
Yeah.
No, it's like, it's mad.
I mean, it's interesting. I was just thinking about it because there's a new memoir that just came out that I want to get, and it's someone who just is going to reveal like loads of stuff about their past. And it's funny because like every new person who enters the limelight, or like every new person who looks like they've got it covered, they're a genius or something, you want to know, yeah, but what's the crap that went wrong, you know? Like, yeah. But the thing is, the good and the bad side is you'll always find it. Like, they're just humans. Like, of course they messed up or somebody was horrible to them. It's just like it's always there, you know. But it's interesting how. Yeah, you just got to hope that feeling that I think everyone has, which is, why would anyone care what I have to say? Why would anyone want to do this with me particularly? You just have to hope that it's not holding you back from anything, you know? That you go and do things regardless of having that feeling. Yeah,
I think that it's okay, let me try and answer this way. I think that, you know, certainly today you have to be so careful all the time that things that you either say put on social media or things that you say are not misconstrued in any way, because there will be people. What was it the other day? Was it there was an actor or presenter or something, and that people were then going through his or her Twitter feed from like 15 years ago when they were a kid and found something which they then thought we needed to know about now.
Ridiculous.
And then this. I thought it was ridiculous myself.
Yeah.
But that is the problem, I suppose, when you're growing up, or maybe not just growing up nowadays, but when you're existing nowadays, because, you know, you might see something, you know, on social media, you might go, "Oh, I like that," and you might just like it and then move on to the next thing. It doesn't mean too much to you. But then suddenly you get contacted and they say, "Oh, what's going on here? You know, why have you, do you not know that person's a racist? Or do you not know this? Do you not know?" And you're like, "Well, I just saw a post and I thought that was really interesting, what they put." And, you know, it can take you down a dark path. There is, and I'm going to be very careful, I'm going to say this, but on social media, on Facebook this week, there was probably a well-known American writer who put something about all the children that are doing the climate change protests and whatnot. And
I know who it is. Yeah.
Okay, so cool. Okay, so when I read the original post, I was like, okay, I think this is very much I'm not saying I agree with it, so let's just be clear with that. But I thought he's got his tongue very firmly in his cheek here, and he's actually making a different point. And when I scrolled through it, I was expecting a point where he was just going to go, "You know what, everybody, I've just done this on purpose to make a point. Of course, I don't believe what I've just put, but I've done it for this reason."
Yeah.
But it then just became this, barrage from all around the world of people just posting all this stuff. "I'm going to throw your books away. I've gone outside and burnt your books." You think, wow, words do fail me.
Oh, it's just a new. Let's hope it's a fad, because you can't. 15 years ago, I was half my age. Do you want me to?
Right.
Do you want me to condone anything I said as a 15-year-old? I don't think so. Jesus Christ,
no.
That guy got through his teens. Give him a break, you know. Like, he had more pressing matters than like the standard of speech that we have today. It's also like it's holding people. Like, how do you think we got the standards we have now? It's by saying stuff and then going, "Not quite that," you know, this and evolving. It's like, how do you think you get these standards? And it's like these people these people back in the day were fighting for, I don't know, different things. It paves the way for new problems to be the one at the forefront, you know?
But the problem is, don't you think this is that everybody wants to be offended nowadays, and everybody is offended. Now, obviously, we have to treat everybody with respect, dignity, etc., etc. So, I'm 100% a firm believer of that. But I've seen it myself in shopping queues, where someone said, it costs £2, whatever the person in front of me's bought, £2.80. They've given them £2.50. Then there's a big argument, and then someone says, you're picking on me because I'm this, I'm that. I've seen that with my own eyes, and I'm thinking, wow, how has that situation become that in 10 seconds? It was just a mistake on the handing over the money. I saw that you only gave £2.50 rather than £2.60 or £2.80 or whatever. And now, how are you dredging up, or how have you got yourself into this situation, into this corner? Sorry.
Well, it's also, I mean, I do see that. I can't tell if people are more. Well, you'll be able to tell. I want to know your perspective on this as well. But as I get older, I'm not very scared of things anymore, but it seems like everyone else is going in the opposite direction. It seems like people seem to get more and more terrified. Now, as somebody who, this is going to make me sound a bit arrogant, but as somebody who reads a lot, you find people in the same situations you've been in over and over again. And one thing I don't want to do is sit here and stew over something that's already been documented somewhere, right? It's like, okay, you're not alone. It's here. This other person or this other character went through the same thing, but the author wrote it because they were imagining that this might happen, and it is happening to you. Great, move on, right? And then your thoughts move on to something more interesting. I feel like people, because they don't read, they're just like, oh my God, I'm the one person in history going through this dilemma, and now I'm going to take it out on everyone around me. And it's like, hey, you just appeared in my line of vision. You're my competition now. Who do you think you are? I feel that all the time around people my age. And I think it's just because the older you get, you're always just looking, the longer you've been waiting for somebody to step in and tell you what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And the longer that person never shows up, because they're never going to, and I think that I think it's just that. I think it's referred pain. I think it's I can't tell me.
No, as I say, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. I think that in my life, I was never scared, in the fact that, I suppose the Cold War was, I guess when I was born, the Cold War was on. But, once all the peace treaties were signed and we thought that we lived maybe in a good place, then you had all the issues with the Middle East.
Well, what do you think that storytelling does in the midst of this? Does it inform people? Does it ease their pain, or what do you think your role is?
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because I don't know whether. Okay, so for my own writing, I don't know whether I try to put current affairs into my work, or if I write about current affairs, if I write about the world. I know writers that do that. I don't think I've ever really included myself in that. But it's interesting that when I moved to France to write this script a couple of years back, it was about the son of Napoleon, who was brought up in, even though he was French or half French, he was brought up in Austria as a prisoner. And so it's a historical script, and it was set in the 1820s, 1830s. But it was really interesting. We noticed, me and my French co-writer, how much of stuff that was going on, say, in France today, a little bit of the sort of, not so much the Brexit, because that was really just kicking off. We were writing it while the referendum happened. But, some of the French politics definitely was going into our script. I don't think we did it on purpose, but it was in there. When we read it back, we were like, oh my God, that was really strange. I suppose the other thing is that out of all this sort of crisis and whatnot, is that you do get some really interesting and exciting stories. People do want escapism. Something you said earlier, though, I think is something else that's worrying, is that people aren't reading anymore. I mean, obviously some people do read, obviously, but when I was growing up, everyone used to have books. When I was in London, you'd be on the tube and everyone had books. Now, I'm not saying they're not reading their books on their Kindles or on their phones or not, but it doesn't seem to be what it was. Maybe that's just me being in the wrong places at the wrong times. But I always saw people with books, always reading, but you're just not getting it anymore. I don't think. It might be different where you are. I don't know. I guess that you use a lot of public transport, so I don't know whether you've got people who are always reading. Even if it's on their phone, they're reading, but. It seems a bit of a dying art, and that's really sad if that's true.
It's really difficult. It's difficult for me to say. I haven't looked at the statistics, but as far as I could tell, at least when Kindles first came out, reading went up. I think reading is. I mean, it's difficult. Like, books are so accessible now. You can a new book comes out and then you can just like download it onto your Kindle straight away. There's so much good to say about it. It's really difficult for me to say how much people are or aren't reading. I mean, because I don't know, or is it just that? I mean, like, no matter how much you read, you're going to have a tough time relating to other people because we're so unknowable, even unto ourselves. Like, it's so complicated just trying to interact with other human beings. And if you don't do it, you're going to suffer even more. Like, it's just tough to be a human relating to other humans. But I really don't know. I don't know if people are getting smarter or not. I feel like they are. I just and I don't know if.
Honestly, you think that they're getting smarter?
I have no idea. How would I know? I've got no idea. Because
I want to say that that's. I want to say that that's true. And I know that. I tell you, it interests me when I meet other writers because some of them seem very well read, and you can talk about something before you know it. Within 5-10 minutes, you are talking about something really bizarre. And you go, "How did I get to that point?" And that is brilliant. And then you meet other writers who, no, I don't read books. I just write. I mean, when I was at uni, there was a guy who was doing an English degree. And he was quite proud of the fact that he wasn't reading any books, even though he was doing an English degree. And I said, "What are you on about?" He said, "Well, look, I read all the time. I read crisp packets. I read signs." He said, "That's all the reading you need to do." And he was proud of that.
I hope he's grown up a bit since then. He's probably cringing about that now.
Yeah, well, I hope that's the case. But just for me, books... offer you, I know it's maybe a bit pretentious, a bit cliche or whatever, but they offer you so much more than those words that are on that paper.
Yeah, because like even when you watch, the interesting thing about this project is I really am just interested in the people behind the books, because I don't think that people can necessarily, first of all, if somebody thinks that there's something to say about their book that they didn't put in the book, then they're going to think they did a bad job. So I don't really know that there is more to say about a book the person's written than should be there. And certainly what's in a book can be more complex and eloquent than a person is capable of in like conversation. That's often why people write, I think, is because they find that they're most articulate on the page instead of in conversation.
That's not to stop your train of thought, but no, but is that's a really interesting point, because I know people that are great writers but cannot articulate themselves verbally at all. It's just impossible for them to do that. And then you can read their words and you go, wow, I really want to meet this person. And then you do, and they're just boring. They can't, there's just nothing to them. And you think, wow, how can somebody as one-dimensional as you in the flesh create something that is something altogether, wonderful? You also then do get to that point, don't you? I mean, there's, I think it's in one of the papers here, there's an advert in England at the moment, there's an advertisement for something, and it just says, when the writer says that the curtains were blue, And then you've got all these different opinions about why he's put the curtains are blue. And then it goes back to the author who says, well, I just like blue curtains. You know, why do we have to keep thinking there's more to it? The fact that this writer, I mean, I've had that in my life where, you know, I've never done drugs. That is not my thing at all. But some of my stories, certainly my early stuff, was well out there. It was well out there. And people would come up to me going, Dean, you know, this is amazing. And they'd start talking to me about drugs that they thought I'd taken because they'd had similar trips. And then they start giving me a rundown of all my work about why I put words in certain places, and you go, okay, you're really seeing something that, I don't think I did, but fair play to you if that's what you think.
Yeah, well, they're not wrong. They're not wrong to take those.
Not.
Yeah,
no, maybe not.
Yeah,
and I suppose that's the point, isn't it? Is the fact that, you know, somebody could write 100 words on a piece of paper, give it to you, give it to me, give it to 10 other people, and you're going to get 10 different opinions. And at the end of the day, none of those opinions are wrong. It might not be what the writer meant originally, or, you know, but it doesn't matter because we've all got something out of it, and hopefully it's then nourished our brain a little bit.
But yes, absolutely. And like, this is why I want to believe, or why I do believe that people are much more intelligent than they often are. When, you know, like, you've got a memory of a guy from university who said something very silly about crisp packets, who maybe now is, you know, hopefully far more evolved than he is. I go out to, you know, maybe various events here in Stavanger, and I meet new people, and they say something silly because they're trying to relate to me and they don't really know who I am, and then I mistakenly think, oh, this is a very silly person. But then, like, if you read a book that they wrote, or if they read something, you might even unlock something in them, or some side of them that you don't yet know about. And there's always more to them. I mean, I try to, there's more to us than even we see, because when, as you know, as an experienced writer, know, a lot of it is subconscious. There's a logic going on. Yeah, there's a logic going on that even we don't understand about ourselves. Definitely. And I think that, you know, what's interesting about that is that, you know, when I try not to repeat myself when I'm writing a story, and it's then interesting that, you know, you look back maybe even over the last 18 months at probably 5 or 6 of the stories that I've come out that have been published, and though in you would look at them and see that they were all different stories, not related, there will be similar themes in each of them, right? And there's one particular image that I just need to get out of my head, but it's in these stories all the time. I'm thinking, well, I didn't consciously put that there, but now looking back at it, how is that? And it's obviously something that's weighed on my mind, that needs to come out. And that really interests me about the writing process, because, you know, you think that, and maybe about the brain in general, is the fact that you think that you think that you put some words down on a page and you're doing that randomly. Are you doing that randomly, or is there something in your brain that's already worked it out? Do you know what I mean? It is the fact that you think it's random, that you think it's subconscious, but actually there's something in your brain that's telling you these are the words that you've got to put down. Most definitely. And I think also, like, if you've ever, just speaking generally, like, if you ever go through something traumatic, like, afterwards, your body kind of, it has emotions queued up for you as well. It goes, I'm going to need you to feel really sad for a long time. And you go, all right. But you can't, like, if you put it off, it will get even worse, right? So you just got to feel really sad for a long time. And then if you do that, your body goes, good, I'll let you feel happy now. Well done. You did that properly, right? That's just, I'm just thinking about people that I've talked to like that. You know, if you go through something meaningful, if you go through a loss, or, you know, a big life change, sometimes you do just need to feel very sad for a long time. And it's your body is healing something inside you using the fuel of making you feel sad for a long time. And that's not something I understand, but I definitely know that's how it works. And I know if you interrupt that process, it just gets worse. And it must be the same for writers, I think. It's like, if you don't get the words out of you, you're going to feel terrible. I think that's, most writers say that, you know. Yeah,
I mean, I know definitely in the past, if I don't write for a couple of days, I get very cranky, my head hurts, and it's almost like there's a building up of pressure. And then I might just sort of, you know, take out my computer or whatever, or my little notepad and pen and just sit there and write a load of stuff. And it might just be a load of gibberish, but it's got out. It's out of me now. So, and I've always thought that was quite interesting as a writer. When people sort of say, "How do you become a writer?" and blah blah blah, that sort of question. I always say that, well, I guess that you can become a writer. I guess you can be taught how to write, or how to write better. But I think that if you are a writer, it's in you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And I think that, the same is, like painters. I would like to paint. I cannot paint. When I was at school, the teacher came over and just broke my paintbrush and said, "Dean, don't bother. That's it. Leave the class," sort of thing. I wasn't being naughty or anything like that. He just said, "You have absolutely no aptitude for art." Now, we could look back at that and go, well, that's completely the wrong thing to do. But that was teaching them. I would love to be able to paint, but am I sort of banging my head up against the wall? Because yes, you can teach me to paint maybe, or teach me to draw or whatever, but it's not what's inside me. Whereas the writing, the words and all that is inside me.
That's definitely, that's obviously your experience. That's the experience of a lot of writers. But if someone is to ask me what a writer is, to me, a writer is anyone. Anyone could do this. Anyone could be taught how to do this to a certain degree. I just think the writer's persona is nonsense. Personally, I think it's nonsense, and I think that it's been made up by scared writers trying to scare off other writers. And the older, with each year that passes, the more annoyed I get at anyone who is discouraged creatively in any field, regardless of what aptitude they have for it at the time. Because we say, nobody knows what anyone is capable of.
No, you are 100% right. And I know, when and this is, and I proved it. When I met my French co-writer, he had written he'd never written a proper story, if you like. He'd never written a film, but we had that conversation, and I knew that it was in there, and I knew that I could sort of encourage him. So that was one of the main reasons why we did what we did. And I think that what I tried to do for him, rightly or wrongly, is to be that person that I didn't have when I was starting out. Now, what I could see with him is, maybe he wasn't the greatest writer in the world. I'm not saying that at all. But what I tried to do was, okay, we've agreed to do this together, so let's try and do it together. And if he came with ideas, I didn't turn around and say, "Oh, no, Roman, that's rubbish," or blah, blah. We tried to make it work. So I'm definitely with you. You should never, and also then going through, as I say, the story with my teacher with the paintbrush, you should never discourage anybody from doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. But also another thing you've just touched upon that I think is so interesting is one of the most meaningful things I find that I can do is when I'm then responsible for a situation that when I was in it, it went badly. And then I thought, if I was the one who was creating the situation, I would do it better next time. For example, my day job, I'm a process engineer. And I was, when I first started, and I came to Norway alone with nobody. And then it felt to me like everyone was a little hostile, as if who's this young guy who thinks he's so great? And it's guys, don't worry. I don't think I'm great. I'm having a terrible time and I'm just hiding it. And your hostility is not helping. So when a new guy joined the company, I've been working for this company for 6 years. So when a new guy joined the company, I was like, great, lovely to meet you. Let me tour some factories with you and I'll show you what all the equipment is. And I'm not going to feel I'm not going to get mad at you if you ask a question I don't know the answer to because I feel like you're challenging me. We'll just find out what the answer is later, right? And it's so meaningful because you just think, God, I was in a situation that was done so badly to me and I made sure that didn't happen to someone else,
No, you're dead right. And this is exactly what I wanted to do with Roman, is the fact that, I think he's a brilliant writer and he could really become very, very big. At the moment, I think that, he's had some other stuff going on and he's concentrating on that. And, we talk all the time. We were only talking yesterday or whatever. And, we will do some more stuff in the future. But all the time, I just kept thinking to myself, okay, Dean, remember what it was like for you. And you didn't have anybody who could help you do this. So let's try and help this guy and let's try and do this. And it was amazing. I'll tell you what, when we, so there's a little festival down in Monaco and we won some screenplay awards. We won like best historical script. And then they gave us a special award because they'd sort of heard some stuff about our friendship and about what I was trying to do. And what was always great about it, and a bit like, I think like with the guy that you're telling me about, is the fact that Roman challenged me as the more experienced guy to be even better than what I could be, if that makes sense. And what we were trying to do together was create something which people hadn't seen before. So when people were reading our script, they were going, wow, this is crazy. This is, it was so good. And that, it's easy for me to say it was good, but people were telling us. And when we was pitching it to some producers, they just sat there and said, we don't even need to read the script. We can just see the passion that's coming out of you two about this story. And we can see how, you two have worked together and what great friends you are. And that was really, I felt a little bit of a glow of pride, I guess, maybe, that what we'd set out to achieve had actually worked. It wasn't always easy, 100% it wasn't, but at the end of the day, it was something special. Now, one thing that I would ask then about you is, when you went to Norway, do you speak Norwegian?
No, I don't. No, I've been here 6 years and I don't speak it. No.
So the people that the company might be Norwegian, but the people that you're around are all English speakers then, I guess?
Yes, exactly. And the majority of meetings can be done in English. Sometimes I let them do it in Norwegian. And I do kind of understand it. It's interesting when you think about writing, like, it's true that when I first started writing, like I would read lots of very complicated stuff because I thought this is going to be my competitive edge. But the fact is, to get better as a writer, you have to write, and that's where the practice is. To get better at a language, you need to speak it. I can read books in Norwegian, I read emails in Norwegian and everything, but I don't really call myself somebody who understands the language because I don't really speak it. I don't use it really day to day.
No, the reason why I ask that is because obviously going to France is that people speak in French, and I can read it and write it, but I always have a problem with doing the accents and all that. I was always better at speaking German because it was almost like English with the accent. But it was, this is why I say that Roman was brilliant, is the fact that he worked all the time in English. So sometimes there would be a little bit of conversation in French, but the majority of what he was doing was in English. And I'd sit there going, wow, that is pretty cool. That with my help, yes, but we've just written a 3-hour film script in a second language for you. And I think then also, and this is why I asked you about your experience, is the fact that being a foreigner living in France as a writer, it was really, France has always inspired me, and definitely living there has inspired me, because you're almost like that, the stranger all the time. As much as my French friends love me and they want me in their lives and in the communities and blah, 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 you're always going to be that stranger. And I think from a creative point of view, that's really cool, because you can use that to your, to your benefit or whatever. But from a human being living from day to day, it's not always easy. That isn't always. So that's why, as I say, I wondered whether you, from say the language especially, whether you speak in Norwegian.
No, it's a very good question, and it's sometimes I take my own life circumstances for granted, because nothing ever seems very unusual about what's going on in your own life. But then to somebody else, they notice things like, hey, you live in Norway. It's like, I forget that I live in Norway, because it's just something you do. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I lived in Spain for a year before, and I felt more at home there than I did here. I think this is and I thought I was going to feel more at home when I first arrived here, because when I was in Spain, like, I obviously didn't look Spanish. So while I might have spoken Spanish, people always knew that I wasn't Spanish. They were never going to mistake me for a Spanish person. But I thought, people here mistake me for a Norwegian person all the time, but it doesn't really make a difference, because the culture is so different that I'm not really interested in the same things that they are, and they just have a manner that kind of locks you out, or so I thought. But then I realized, somebody told me recently, well, I work with Norwegian engineers, which are like introverts of the introvert, It's like, they're the most closed. They must be some of the most closed people on the planet. I work with a very unusual set of people, and you can find you can find a small percentage of people that you can relate to anywhere on the planet, really. It just takes a bit more extra work. Like, and I think now that, because I live in Stavanger and I've lived in Oslo before, and Oslo is one of those kind of, a bit like London, right? London attracts a certain type of person who loves the notion of London and they're snobby about it and think it's better than other places, right? Well, Oslo is very much like that as well, and I'm so against it. And so then I thought, I'm not going to sit here and pretend then that Stavanger doesn't have the resources that I want. I'm going to just... The fact is, you can have fun and find your people wherever you are on the planet, especially nowadays with the internet and everything. You just have to be a little bit more imaginative and a little bit more persistent in places that are not necessarily jet-setty big cities, right? So I really... If my attitude is that Stavanger is no better or worse than Oslo, which I really don't think it is, it just depends what you make of the place that you're in, It wouldn't even bother me, really, if I ended up living in Glasgow again, because I think I'm a different person and I would know how to thrive there in a way that I didn't when I was younger, So, my question to you on that is, I don't know, so, you live in France how often? Most of the time?
Yeah, so the majority of the time since 2016. So I have been this year, because we've been waiting for these meetings and whatnot, some of the other projects, and then being in Scotland as well, I spent a little bit more time in England. And the people that owned my apartment have sold it. So I've got all my boxes are in a friend's garage in the south of France. Mm-hmm. So over here, I'm actually living out of suitcases.
Right. Well, in what way does that impact your life, generally speaking?
I spent a lot of time in London, but I never have ever felt at home in London. When I moved to Cannes, and even though I'd been to Cannes several times for film festivals and whatnot, I knew that I was at home. And even my little brother sort of says, "Oh, stop saying that." And I say, "Well, it's true. It is really weird to describe it. It's almost like the vibration that my body moves on, or my soul or whatever, the vibration that it moves on in England or in Britain is very different to what it moves at in France. It's like you can walk around and you can touch things, and it feels that is part of you, and you are part of that. And I never ever felt that in London. In London, when I walked around, my head was always down. When I'm in France, Cannes, and in Paris as well, my head is always up. I'm always, it might sound pretentious, I don't know, but when I'm on French soil, I just feel completely different to what I'm like when I feel like when I'm over here.
I think London attracts people who want to find a place that they will never be able to please. People who are kind of seeking to be part of circles that, but will just perpetually never be satisfied. I don't know. London, there's in a city that big, there's everything going on, but I certainly got that mood. That this will be interesting for you to listen to because it's coming out of my mouth. It was the attitude of lots of Londoners, I found.
Definitely right. Definitely right. And I think that, it's very different. Even, I spent a lot of time in Paris, and I've never felt that in Paris. With, it's, I've spent a lot of time in Paris with French people and with non-French people, and everyone just always seems happy that they're there and happy that you're meeting each other. And, you could be very famous or not famous, or, you could be sweeping the road, but at that moment you're in there having a drink in the pub or whatever, having a chat, and everyone's equal and everyone's having a good time. In London, it's almost like everyone wants to, who are you? Because I want to be bigger than you. Yeah. And now I'm bigger than you. Who's this person? Oh, I'm going to be bigger than that person. And then the other thing also is the fact there's so much happening in London that you end up doing nothing.
Interesting.
I this happened to me, and I know plenty of my other friends. You go, "Oh, should we go to the theatre tonight?" "Oh, I don't know. What do you want to go and see?" And then, "Well, let's go to the cinema." "Well, what do you want to go and see?" And before you know it, let's not bother. And you just don't. Whereas, so what I've found in France is that people say, "Oh, Dean, we're going to the cinema. Do you want to come?" You go, "Yeah, okay, let's go."
Yeah.
Now, whether it's because certainly in Cannes, there's less stuff to do than there is in London. I don't know, but it just seemed a 100% different mentality. London is always seemed to be anyway, getting one over on somebody and no time for anybody else. You'd never sort of spark up a conversation with someone who comes and sits next to you on public transport. And, you talk about politics and, I know you really shouldn't talk about it maybe, but, you start talking about it before you know it, there's a fight breaking out. In France, you've got so many different politics going on that people can generally, if not all the time, but let's say generally, have a good debate, a good chat, and you're all friends at the end of it. But I didn't see that in London. I just, you talked earlier about being scared, and I know in London, I'm a grown man, but you'd be walking around London going, "Oh, I don't like this." There's just something in the air all the time.
Oh yeah, it's true. And no, I mean, you're not even allowed to look other people in the eye in London.
No.
It's very weird. But there's so many interesting people there, but you're not allowed to look at them. but
the thing is, listen, I know, like in Paris, so I like wearing scarves, right, with my suits or whatever. And I know Roman bought me a scarf for my birthday, and I was in Paris, and someone came up and started talking to me about that scarf, right? And they were like touching it or whatever, going, "Wow, this is really nice. Where did you get this from?" And having a whole conversation. If that had happened in London, that would have been, absolutely no way would that have happened.
I was like, can you, if it was like, "Can you join my cult now?"
Listen, I had that as a student. I was laughing to myself about this the other day about getting a bus one time and this guy come and sit next to me and then started talking to me about religion and all that. I was like, "Oh yeah, cool. And then he was trying to get me to go off to his cult. And he kept turning, he followed me, came back to the house where the other students were. And how different my life might have been if I'd gone off to this cult.
So much better, I'm sure. You would have transcended by now. You wouldn't need all this writing material. We got in touch because of Demain Publishing, and we haven't even talked about it yet.
We have not. That's cool.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I can quickly tell you about that if you want.
Please do.
Okay, so the last few years I've been obviously doing books for other indie publishers for all around the world, and some writers kept saying to me, "Dean, you're so good at doing this. Why don't you try and do publishing yourself?" And I was like, "No, I can't be bothered with that." But there was just too many people that kept asking me, so I did. I'd written a novella for another publisher, which came out in a book, which was about First World War horror stories. And we were doing a sequel, and that publisher said, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't do it." So I said, "Okay, I'll step in." And I had somebody who was doing all my covers and branding, and that sort of, he had some issues, so that sort of stopped. So I didn't do anything for a little while, but I had all these stories, and I've been doing a lot of, I can say these names, I'm quite happy about this, a guy called Trevor Kennedy. He does some books in a magazine, and I saw some covers, and he said, "Oh, I can put you in touch with the guy. His name's Adrian Baldwin. I'm sure that you two can work together." And yep, we did, and he's done some brilliant covers. We've been releasing these books called the Short Sharp Shocks, which are sort of short stories, small ebooks, which will then soon be in paperback, hopefully at the end of this year. We're getting about 50. We've got to number 34, I think, and that's 34 that have been published since March of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been really hard work. We've done a couple of novellas, hopefully to get another couple of books out before Christmas as well, which aren't short, sharp shocks. And next year we're doing some science fiction and some crime and thriller. So it's been really, really busy because obviously it's starting to get quite successful. I mean, the brand's getting out there, people are seeing it. And the great thing is that not all of the reviews mention it, but a vast majority of reviews, as well as reviewing the particular book, actually then start talking about the series and saying, "Look at the covers, look at, what they're trying to do here." It's been really, really good. Even this week, we released, what's today, Saturday? We released 5 yesterday. and some reviews have already come out, and some of those reviews are already mentioning the covers and the branding, and that this is a really exciting series that people should be reading and getting involved with. My email box is really full every day of people that are getting in touch saying, look, we've heard about this, we've seen this, we've got a story, would you be interested? So it's been hard work, and as I say, as well as doing my own writing, I'm also running the business. But it's really good. And I got annoyed with myself fairly recently because I was thinking I'm not reading books too much at this moment in time. And then I said, well, why are you getting angry about it? Of course you're reading all this stuff that's being sent to you. So I was okay. But, I hadn't physically gone to a shop for a while to buy a book. And I think that's the thing that was annoying. But yeah, I mean, probably even tonight, there's been a couple of stories sent to me today. So if I get a chance tonight, I'll read them. If not, then first thing tomorrow when I wake up. And it's been really exciting. The work that I've been sent, it's been really, really cool. And people getting in touch with me saying, Dean, look, we haven't got anything at the moment, but can you keep us a slot? And some sort of, the names are, I don't know if that's one way of saying that. I was going to say that, we're having some big names contact us as well. But, I love introducing, my little strap line was, or is, publishing tomorrow's horror stars today. And that's what I like, is reading stuff from new writers that maybe haven't had anything published, but they've written a really, really cool story. So why not give them a chance? Again, this is what I wish I'd had, 15 years ago or something.
Brilliant. Are there any particular milestones ahead? Anything you want to see happen with the publisher?
What with the one thing that I suppose we need to be doing is that we haven't been, because we've been concentrating on the ebooks, we haven't actually been doing too much print and then getting out to conventions and selling books and meeting our readers sort of face to face, which is definitely what we want to do next year. There's the big StokerCon is coming to Scarborough in April, I think it is. So we're going to try and have a presence there. But also, there's probably 1 or 2 slots left for next year, but there's a few books that we're releasing. But also what we want to do is then move into films. There's a couple of writers that I've been working with that had written some scripts, and they said, Dean, we'd like you to direct these. So we're looking at maybe setting up a film company. We're probably a good 9 months away to do that, but setting up a film company, doing a couple of shorts maybe, and then doing a feature film as well under the Demain brand, under the Demain brand. So that'd be cool.
Very cool. Anything you want to let us know about what's coming out next?
No, all I would say is just keep an eye out on our Facebook page, Demain Publishing, and on the website. I can send you that. I don't know if I've sent you those details, but I can send you the details if you want them. But I say just keep an eye on the website, just keep an eye on the blog, on the Facebook page, because we've got a good plan for what's happening over the next 18 months, but things can change. People contact and send me a book. I think, let's do this now. Then we do try and fit that in. And that's what we did with, at the beginning of this week, we had Dave Jeffries' dystopian novella, A Quiet Apocalypse, which he'd been talking to me about for a little while, and sent it to me. And then it was really, really good. And I said, well, let's not wait around. Let's just get it out. Mm-hmm. So we brought that forward, and we got the ebook out that came out, let's say on Monday, and the paperback should be out next month, the end of next month.
Cool. So that was Dean Drinkel, editor of Demain Publishing. I hope you'll check it out. And in the meantime, if you're a reader, writer, editor, listener, any type of creative, or just anyone listening with anything to tell me about the show, you can always do so using losingtheplotpodcast@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. But that's all from me for now. So until next time, bye bye.